Who the hell is typing on right now?
I guess.
I'm done.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 645. Is the era of the silent protagonist over from Extra Punctuation? And I don't know the answer to that. I really don't, but I honestly don't care because...
Was there an era of that?
Well, you could say
Yes.
back in the 90s with the advent of the Super Nintendo, it sort of slowly went away, but we had Chrono Trigger in 95, and that had a silent protagonist. We had all kinds of games where we did
Half-Life.
Yeah, no, it's a great example too, where there was no voice acting, even though the game could have had voice acting, like Half-Life. So they didn't voice the main character. I don't even think he had any written dialogue at all. So
No, not Gordon. No.
yeah, so there's nothing wrong with having a silent protagonist in a video game because the idea is you are the player character, and it's easier to just have you be an agent of a mode of operation or a agent of change or whatever you want to call that to interact with the environment. You are a agent that acts, not necessarily one that speaks. Not to say you can't do that. I mean, there's lots of games that do have dialogue options where you interact with the story and branching paths and branching narratives, but that's not as cracked up as it is advertised to be. So, is it better?
It's easier to project yourself into the to immerse yourself into the role of the character,
Which is part of role playing, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if the dialogue is completely pre-written, then the role playing is just limited to walking around in the world and hitting things, but not the interactions. I can't make up in my head what I would say to the other characters, for example, which is what a lot of people do.
especially when you have the weird promise of choice in games, like in Mass Effect. I always bring this Mass Effect as the best example of, well, you could play Paragon or Renegade, but they play around with those concepts so poorly throughout the series, even to the point of the third game just almost eliminating it. And you have this idea of what you want to say, and then what the voice line is actually different than what was written. And that's like, well, that's not what I wanted. So
yeah, I absolutely hated that. It was destroying my immersion. I felt like I'm not role-playing anymore. The character's just doing random chaotic things that I actually have no control over. It's more like playing a lottery.
And then you had Mass Effect 2 where Renegade just become, let's be a weirdo jerk goofball that hurts people as Renegade. It's just like, why did I do that? Like, I didn't even want to throw him out a window. I didn't want to kill the guy. I just wanted to scare him. So there's lots of weird things. And they're not bad. They're not unentertaining. But they're completely unexpected. You have very little control. And unfortunately, Paragon just becomes the goody two-shoes. I'm going to be nice every single time.
Yeah, for some reason, like the people just tend to like people who like have a voice acting next to the main character. I don't know why. I remember when during the release of Mass Effect 1, people were praising that BioWare finally added a game where the protagonist can talk, because like they really hate the silent protagonist, even though they got rid of the dialogue, the written dialogue. Instead, it's just words that like maybe it's gonna mean that thing.
Yeah,
I mean, the previous BioWare and Blackout games, the protagonist was not silent. You had the dialogue written out, and that gave you better control over what am I actually saying.
Yeah, for sure.
And that helps with the role playing.
Yeah, KOTOR.
Because I know what's actually going to happen.
KOTOR, even the not necessarily Icewind Dale, but Neverwinter Nights, maybe you could argue, had the dialogue options, and they tried to get closer with KOTOR as a result of the cutscenes with the camera angles and the lack of lip sync. So it's like, okay, I'm talking to someone, and here's my dialogue option, and then the side characters bring up the narrative in whatever drama they want to talk about, which I thought was pretty effective, especially in 2, with those huge cast of characters that just pop in near the last half of the game, and they have their own weird, quirky stories, and then they can grow. Some of them can grow as a result of the Force, which I thought was, well, we're talking outside of BioWare now, but that was the weird thing what Star Wars Episode 8 tried to do. KOTOR 2 already did, meaning not everyone could be a Jedi or a Sith, but the people around you that were influenced by you, some of them could. So that was interesting, I thought, from the perspective of what they did with KOTOR 2.
I kind of like that it's in the events of like a few weeks, or like I don't know, because like those events don't take place through a month, I believe. Like the Exile managed to train like at least 3 or 4 people to be Jedi. That's kind of crazy.
Or Sith, yeah. It's just that they happen to be sensitive to the Force, and because you are a wound in the Force, they are drawn to everything. The universe is drawn to you, which also happens to be Force-sensitive people, which also happen to know you very well. So that was, okay, there's a bit far-fetched to it, but I liked the fact there was a metaphysical explanation for it, the same way they did so in Planescape Torment. Everyone's just, there's multiple reasons why all the characters are drawn to you, which I thought was even better, but there's enough for you to go, okay, this makes enough sense for me to keep going, which I thought was great. So there are ways to do it. The silent protagonist is effective, and even if you want to make a game whose focus is gameplay and not storytelling, I still think it's very successful. There's lots of games like that these days, which are 16-bit pixel style that don't require a heavy-duty narrative or heavy-duty dialogue for the main character. So
I think Deus Ex did both back then. They had full text choice that was then also voiced.
That was the ultimate 70s homage to weird, quirky, kitschy, stylized narrative. It felt like I'm watching a weird 70s, 80s sci-fi flick in cyberpunk. It was funny.
Yeah, the good cyberpunk stuff.
I guess if you want to call it that. Deus Ex was always very different for me because I tried it. I was like, I can't get into this. I don't know what's going on. Like, what do you mean you don't know what's going on? My buddies are like, what's happening? Like, I didn't know what to do it for because I thought it was a shooter. And I'm like, I kept dying. I was like, what the hell's happening?
It is a shooter.
I know, but he's like, well, don't stop shooting. Use your hacking skills. Like, well, okay. And I
use everything.
Yeah, I know. It was hard to, but you eventually have to focus, so it was kind of tough for me to get into.
Yeah. Anyway, Deus Ex could be anything you wanted. My question now is, for anyone who knows, without spoiling too much, hopefully, but for the topic, is Link in Breath of the Wild 2, which comes out next month, still going to be a silent protagonist?
It should be.
Then the era is not over.
Yeah, no,
everything's fine.
Zelda, Metroid,
Kirby,
Mario, all the Nintendo games. Yeah.
Anyone that mentions Other M, I'm throwing you out the window.
Yeah, the style.
There is no such thing.
The style.
Other M is in the back.
Yeah,
oh god.
What Other M?
Okay,
what are you talking about?
The style of the Nintendo game, because it was born in the 80s, and there was no time and space and technology to actually do that for the most part. It's still effective. It's still fun. The designs are, I wouldn't say the same. They're just expanded because of the tech. But what do we have now? Link goes, he screams. Mario has a few woohoo lines, and Kirby has a. Does Kirby have any lines? What does he say? What does Kirby do?
Pollo.
Yeah.
And Samus most of the time has her inner thoughts.
Yeah, she has 0 lines. She's great. Samus is my favorite.
To spoil a little bit, she has 1 line in Dread, but it's not in English. It's in Chozo.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah. There's that you could call that an exception, but it's not exactly traditional dialogue in the sense.
Well, I love the fact that she is using a power suit controlled by her mind, and she's all about being effective and fighting and doing flips and jumps in the air and space jumps and all kinds of cool tech. Like that's like, oh, this is the perfect character.
A woman who doesn't talk.
Doesn't talk.
Finally grasps perfection.
No, even better, a woman that has no need to talk.
There you go. She doesn't have to open her mouth because she's blowing away aliens with a
actions.
Yeah.
Actions.
What you mean is a woman who knows when she has no need to talk.
Yes, even better.
Strong, independent lady with a massive arsenal and a spaceship.
An actual strong, independent woman.
There you
go. Take notes, leftist.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's why they hate her. That's why they don't want her to exist. Also, she's blonde and blue-eyed and has a perfect body. They don't like that.
I do remember the first.
Hate her.
Was it Feminist Frequency? I can't remember the name of the series that Sarkeesian did, but
it is Feminist Frequency.
Yeah, the first one she talked about the theoretical feminine hero, and I was like, you're just describing Zelda. Like you're literally just describing A Link to the Past or any Zelda game, but instead of a male Link, it's a female Link, and I'm like, what? Like, why are you just play Zelda? Like, don't you get it? What is your problem? Anyway, I saw her on the news the other day. I was like, okay, this is silly.
And we even did get a female Link, and she's an airhead.
Oh well. Okay, let's get to Mr. Kyogress's hideout. How's it going, buddy? Link, I'd call semi-silent. He has no spoken voice, but he clearly says stuff to the characters in the games, either dialogue, choices, or unseen words. That's true, but it's narrated through Navi or other characters that
companions. Yes,
they're talking through him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there are some lines in the older games that imply that Link said something.
Yeah,
but he doesn't actually. But you don't actually see him say it.
Yes,
like the CDI games.
Oh god.
Oh
no.
boy,
I'm not talking about those.
What are the CDI? What is that?
No,
Link, the faces of evil.
They don't exist as far as.
Although I would say the advantage that Link has is that they're not all the same character. They fall under the same mold, but they're different people.
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
They're all the same soul.
The same soul, yes, but not entirely the same person.
Including the CDI games.
Okay.
Also, Link is not canon. Hyrule Warriors is not canon.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
And she's more like Imagine Bayonetta, but Link.
I wouldn't even say that.
Well, she fights with double repetier crossbows.
Okay.
That she reloads by.
So it's guts.
By clicking them into her boots.
So it's Diablo 3 Bounty Hunter or whatever her name is? Demon Hunter?
Yeah, but before that was a thing. I bet Blizzard copied that.
Oh. Anyway, we've been rambling for enough. We could talk about this for hours because we love the topic. But anyway, 7 minutes and a half of Mr. Yahtzee. Here we go.
Yay, Yahtzee.
So, the Dead Space remake came out recently to calmly and matter-of-factly condemn the Callisto Protocol to the dustbin of memory forever, and the big question was whether it was a full ground-up remake along the lines of the RE2 make or Black Mesa, or merely a remaster, a copy-paste of the assets with a quick squirt of HD Mr. Sheen. The truth lay somewhere in the middle. It's mostly the same layout, spruced up, but with a number of significant design choices tweaked to be more in line with modern sensibilities. Most notably, the main character Isaac Clarke actually talks now, and isn't a silent protagonist. And that made me wonder, is gaming culturally moving away from the concept of the silent protagonist? I've certainly observed that the trend in AAA realms has lent more towards constant verbal diarrhea lately, so is the silent protagonist a thing of vanishing relevance in modern times? To answer that, we should consider how they came about as a cliché and what purpose they may still serve. Well, it's fairly easy to answer how they came about, because they were the default at first. Speech and dialogue required precious memory that early games couldn't spare, and frequently dialogue wasn't even necessary for the gameplay, as was the case with almost all of Nintendo's properties, your Mario and your Link and your Samus Aran. Silent protagonists only became a quote-unquote thing when video games reached the point of being perfectly capable of giving speech to the main character, but chose not to for stylistic reasons. The Nintendo characters mostly remained silent after the dawn of CD audio, probably because they had been established as silent in the old days, and whenever they did try to give them voices, it always felt a bit iffy. No. Reference the Zelda CDI games, and Metroid Other M, although feeling iffy was the least of those games'
Oh dear.
That's like hiring someone who's never drawn before and say, let's do animation. It's like, okay, here's a light table.
They have like, what was the story? There's a whole video about it on YouTube, like how they hired these guys. Like the American director dude hired like random Russian animators after the wall fell. The Berlin Wall fell, and they said like, "Hey, do you want jobs? Okay, I can give you some." And then they he told them that like here's this entirely new technology that you have to use. Okay, you have like 6 months to adapt to it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, way to go, Phillips.
Amazing. Jeez. Something is off about that style. It's like, imagine just taking one frame of that and trying to draw that yourself. It's like, okay, this is really bad. Like, I would never have facial proportions or perspectives.
It's probably all drawn with the mouse.
Oh, I don't know about that. That would be hilarious.
Just looking at this frame, it kind of does look like it was drawn with a mouse.
I don't know.
It was reduced, like the pixelated after being employed into the computer, of course. But like the background is definitely drawn with a mouse.
It's flat. There's no shading. It's nothing. There's no lighting.
But this is all the colors the Philips CDI could show. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
Regarding legacy characters who were silent before being silent was cool, what was the first case of an Isaac Clarke-type mute who didn't speak despite existing in a world where they should by rights have been perfectly capable of speech? Well, Wikipedia seems to think Myst was the first notable example of the silent protagonist in the age of speech, and fair enough, there are multiple characters in the game that talk to you in full-on voiced FMV cutscenes.
I mean, yeah, if you want
He'll get there later.
Yeah, there's was it not Ringworld, what the hell was it called? There was D. I just remember that one. That's a very niche title back in the day for the PlayStation. There was, what's the other adventure game? Not like Myst.
The King's Quest.
Podcast?
It was based off not Terry Pratchett. What the hell was it based off? It was some other. Oh, geez. I remember so many jokes in that game too. There was Pissed. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was a spoof of Myst that had John Goodman in it. Yeah, there was all kinds of weird adventure games in the 90s, and they mirrored the Myst formula. So,
if you mean funny ones with magic, there would be Simon the Sorcerer for one.
I can't remember the name of the titles, but they weren't popular, but it was like, oh, this is if you like adventure games, because that's when I think Sierra was kind of cool at the time, and they never got into 3D yet, so they were doing the FMV stuff, or at least trying to do the FMV stuff, and then they slowly I think the next one I remember was the X-Files one, and what was the other one called? I can't recall them all, but they all came out in the late 90s, so they were there, but they never really took off.
Just mutely boggles at them the whole time. Myst PC adventure games that was always the case in stuff like Infocom's classic text adventures, where the protagonist is an almost complete cipher into which we are expected to utterly project ourselves. Don't dwell on the protagonist of Myst, because the protagonist of Myst is literally...
Well, not even. I wouldn't even call it a cipher. Like, there are books from Myst series where, even comic books as well, where they take the character, I think his name is Atreus. So he is like and then, what's the... Riven is the next one. I believe he was like the son of Atreus. So it's not that important, but there's so much little reading to do in the story to figure out who's who. So it's like you have to do the work in these adventure games. It's not told to you specifically. So
more like puzzle games in this instance.
Discworld, that's what it was. Now I remember. That was the one that was weird.
And giving them any kind of face or voice. The game expected me to supply my side of the dialogue at home. You know, wait till the dude stops talking and then ask pointed questions like, why are you in a book? So silent protagonist acting as complete audience stand-in is understandable, but before long a new kind of silent protagonist appeared, one that we weren't intended to fully project ourselves onto because they had characterization and a face. The Doom Marine, for example. Not only is it hard for the players to identify with a half-crazed, monster-destroying force of nature with the ability to run at roughly the land speed record and a gun inexplicably extruding from the middle of their chest, they flat out put the face of the dude smack in the middle of the health bar, so he can scowl at you if you even think about projecting yourself onto him. But in that case, the Doom Marine was a lone survivor behind enemy lines. There was no one for him to talk to, and not much reason for him to talk, as it would give away his position for one thing. Not that any of that ever stopped Duke Nukem. I want to say that the concept of the silent protagonist who is established as a specific...
Yeah, so he's talking about completely different genres of game that don't require a dialogue or any sort of noise, or like do you really want Doom Guy to start screaming and yelling and like acting like Duke Nukem,
talking to himself?
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah, and that's my problem with putting more voice lines to Isaac, because you are inside a zombie infestation. You want to be quiet as long as it's not important. You don't want to be muttering to yourself all the time, because then you can't hear all the zombies coming, sneaking up on you.
I just got a notification of apparently a Persona 3 remake, and that game has, I wouldn't say a silent protagonist, but he's pretty much mute. He has very few.
All he does is that, like, whenever he summons the persona, he says his names out loud. That's all of it.
Yeah. So I imagine the remake would try to mirror the anime movies they made.
Or Persona 5. I think Persona 5 has voice lines.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's got more. Well, even like with 4, you have all these dialogue options. Same with 3, but he's very, well, not, I was going to say depressed, but he's pretty much resigned from life. That's his attitude. So he's just there. So if someone tells him to do something, he'll just do it for no reason because he doesn't care. It's ambivalent to the extreme. It's just completely whatever. That's his reaction to everything. Is whatever. I'll do it. I'll throw my life hardcore at anything because someone asked me to. I have no reason not to. It's like, what?
Yeah. I am... Most of the time, I feel put off when the protagonist keeps talking to himself all the time, like he's insane.
Even the inner monologue is a bit awkward at times. If you read a book and the protagonist or the first-person perspective comes out a lot, you're like, this is a little weird. That's why first-person perspective, you need to have the monologue, or you at least need to have a first-person objective view of what's happening. So if you're writing a story about a guy going through a building, you have to describe it from his perspective or their perspective in the clearest, most sensible way. You can't just be like, oh, everything is gross and disgusting, and this room is gross and disgusting, and I hate my... Like, you get this completely one-sided view, which is so annoying and obnoxious. And it doesn't matter what that view is because it's always the same view of whatever the heck they're seeing. So if they're constantly like emotional or depressed or whatever personality the writer gave this dude, it's going to be like, oh, here's this guy again. Here we go. And if you don't like that attitude, if you don't like that personality, it's going to grate on you. So you need that third level of ambiguity between dialogue and description, which the third person does a better job at, I think.
Yeah, and Max Payne did another good solution for that. With the comic cutscenes where you have the inner monologue in the cutscenes and not distracting you from the actual gameplay.
Yeah, games, even the original Witcher game, I think, did cutscenes like that with fast cuts of an individual art frame. And they would jump to this or jump to that. I thought that was cool. Even the sex scenes, they had those weird cards. I thought that was also, like, a very economic way of doing it. As silly as that might seem to some people. But, you know, if it works, it's effective and it's efficient.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So I don't really see the change, just because some people have to do these unnecessary changes in remakes.
It depends, because it's as long as they keep the same idea and they say, well, we want to add this on top of it, like, we're going to add an extra feature to the Mako and the remaster of Mass Effect. It's like, oh, that's fine. You know, you're just making the thing better for what it was designed to do. That's totally cool. So it depends. It depends on the change, really. It could be anything. Here's Gaw004. Thank you, sir. Alan Wake is unique, where the protagonist talking all the time is justified and part of the charm. That's a good point, because he is a writer. He's looking for his wife, and he's in this big scary town. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. It adds to the horror and it's the genre, really. In a genre, you have the protagonist scared out of his mind, usually, or building up to that. So you need that inner dialogue telling the audience, oh yeah, this is okay. I'm going to be fine. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and then ultimately they die or they lose or whatever, and it ends up happening. So that's part of the buildup of horror. Anyway, here's JS for the donation. Thank you, sir. It's particularly jarring when you combine a vocal protagonist with millennial writing. You end up with random quips like, "Oh, ammo, neat, and extra bullets. Don't mind if I do." I don't know. Is there an example of that?
Yes, the latest. What's that? That Russian game.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Atomic Heart.
Atomic Heart has like a lot of these meaningless dialogue that we would have been better without it. Because like he's gonna comment on literally everything that he sees.
Oh, that's right. I remember seeing some cutscenes. Those are pretty awkward.
Is it on the level of, oh my god, did I just do that with my mind?
It's kind of like that, but like it's an adult male saying it, so yes, it's a bit different context.
Imagine a Russian trying to write the script of an 80s action hero flick.
Yes.
But an 80s action hero doesn't talk much.
Corny action hero lines the way that a Russian...
Big Trouble in Little China level.
Yeah.
Okay.
But instead of being actually
like Kurt Russell
cheesy from like an American author, it's by a Russian author.
And then give it to like an American actor to act.
Oh boy!
It's like
I was thinking like I don't know, like Booker catch. All the time you hear the repetitive line from Elizabeth.
I deleted it from my memory.
Yeah,
that was like so silly. Like how much? If she can just spawn all those bullets, like can't she just like give me something else?
She's completely invulnerable, and she gives you all these ammo packs whenever you're running low. It's great.
Yeah, when you want to make an escort quest, but realize that people hate escort quests.
And the whole game is an escort quest.
Yes.
You made the worst game design decision possible.
I'll still defend Resident Evil 4.
Well, that's different. Did you see the... I saw a Twitter clip. I don't know if that was a mod for the remake.
What?
But what's...
you're talking about that one.
Where Ashley freaking takes on an army of zombies with a knife. He was like, what the hell?
That one. Okay. Oh. That's the tame one, Smud.
That's tame?
Which one did you leave?
Like the Venus statue, Ashley.
She was... Oh, we make a good team. And he's like, yeah, I guess we do. And it goes to this 30-second clip of her like taking down like 12 zombies with a knife. And I'm like, what the hell? It's weird. But anyway,
the only good escort quest Gingerman reminded me of yesterday, because he played Twilight Princess and got to the part of the horse cart escort on horseback, where you go basically through most of the map, most of Hyrule.
Yeah.
To get someone sick to the secret village, I think, or something.
To get the Zora Prince to Kakariko Village.
Yeah, and it's just an amazing action sequence. It's more of an action sequence than maybe an escort quest, really, but you can't fail it.
Yeah, it makes excellent use of the boomerang, by the way.
All right, let's keep going.
Actually, if I can interrupt for a moment, Gaw and Nicolakin wanna hop in on this?
It's almost done. We're like, I don't know if you really need to, but I mean, it's a quick video, guys.
Well, that was just Matthias telling me that they want in on this.
They can join, but it's not going to last very long. So we're almost half done.
All right.
Okay, let's keep going.
Living in a world where other characters talk and interact with them, and it would make sense for them to reply, was championed by good old Gordon Freeman in the original Half-Life. With Half-Life setting the bar for consistent narrative in first-person shooters, we found ourselves forced to wonder how someone incapable of basic social interaction managed to earn a PhD and land a job doing top-level science in a government facility.
Go to any university on that level of science. You will find a lot of socially awkward people who will still have trouble articulating what the fuck they're actually doing.
Some of their thesis presentations, you don't even have to show up. You just hand in your report or your book, You're like, here you go.
Exactly. And like also because just because you can enunciate, it doesn't mean that like it makes sense. Like we have Yahtzee for that.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's also like just to interrupt real quick, is that like this isn't the first time that it's like bringing up this kind of topic for a video, because like he also was bitching about the open world games. Like I think we covered it maybe a year ago or something, and then he brought up Red Dead 2 as an example.
Oh yeah.
Like it was an open world, but like he didn't like it because while you're on a mission, you can't do any of the side quests. Like get the fuck out of here. It's always like he's proving it wrong.
Yahtzee has complained about silent protagonists in the past as well.
Oh, which ones?
I think any JRPG
just is he one of those people who just doesn't want to think for himself in a game and wants it to just tell him everything? Is like a movie where he's the passive audience?
The one that I remember him complaining about was Arno from Dishonored.
Really?
His complaint was like, by all means, this character should talk, because it's kind of weird that he just stands there blank-faced while people talk at him.
Is that the same with, let's say, the Thief games, where you're pretty much... I mean, you do have a voice. They do have a voice actor for... what the hell's his name?
He talks in cutscenes at least, though. But the Dishonored cutscenes, and like another example would be like Half-Life 2. Gordon Freeman doesn't talk even in cutscenes because they're first person and everything.
Well, Garrett also talked a bit in regular gameplay. He just didn't talk to anybody.
Right. Garrett, thank you. So there are plenty of heroes that it can work, but you don't need it during gameplay, and most of the mode of exploration and gameplay is first person, so it's not designed to be that way. Whereas once we got the cutscene, once we got that split sort of camera angle and KOTOR, it's like, oh look, it's a cutscene, even though the lip syncing was not even a thing yet, and the voice actors were doing a decent job telling a story. It was understood that our main character was getting his message across, even with the little sentence or two. So we didn't need.
I mean, outside of something like a mascot platformer.
Yeah,
I can't really think of too many games where people actually talked during gameplay.
Jack, it was Jack, because Yahtzee brought up around like 2002 with Myst about like the beginnings of that.
Yeah, Jack and Daxter came out the year before.
Yeah, and I was like thinking it was Jack and Daxter, and part of the reason in the first game they didn't have him talk was because Naughty Dog was so used to Crash, and they just came off Crash, and they still had like sensibility of like, we're making a goofy platformer, we want him to be animated, and also like they want you to project yourself onto Jack, and that was something that the creators said they immediately regretted, and then
which is why they made Daxter as a compromise.
Oh. But even with games that were particularly wordy, like Metal Gear Solid, even Snake doesn't really talk during gameplay, like at all.
Oh god, the entire game is told. Well, not the entire game. I'd say about 80% of the game is told all through codec.
Cutscenes.
Yeah.
Yes. Which
is brilliant. Now that I think about it, just two little animated GIFs of mouth and blinking animations, while the voice actors do their giant walls of text.
It would be stupid to constantly be talking while you're doing the sneak mission stuff.
Yes. I think the most there was in game was like during the boss fights, where there were a couple lines here and there. So often.
Oh yeah. With
especially how chatty Liquid was.
Liquid would be like chiding on Snake, or Otacon would be talking while you're playing. So yeah, Meryl would be there's all kinds of scenes like that. But
I think like when Snake is about to he's trying to shoot a Stinger rocket at Metal Gear Rex, because I think like Gray Fox is holding down the arm, but he just can't do it, and like he's got a comment on it that he just can't do it.
Oh yeah,
just teasing the player that like he could just stand it there.
The interactive.
Yeah, isn't Gray Fox the one that damages Rex's radar dish?
Yes,
Which forces Liquid to open up Rex's mouth.
The cyborg ninja. Yes.
Yeah, that was the scenes. Was that a specific Hideo Kojima invention? Like, okay, there's a cutscene that's interactive, but you can't do anything. It's like
that might have been his idea.
Yeah, it's
I
like
think he made it popular.
I think that might have been his.
Definitely.
It's like here's a big red button. You can't press the big red. But it's like I want to do it. Just let me do it.
That represents the fact that despite what they just went through over the course of the game, it's like Snake still respects Gray Fox.
Yeah, so it's a character moment more about Snake than it is a gameplay feature, and it's just to showcase that yes, you are playing as Snake, and Snake is a character, and he has this relationship with Gray Fox that you don't understand, and he's not going to hurt his friend, and all this jazz. So
that you don't understand unless you play the MSX games.
Even as late as like MGS3, you had the final moment with the boss where the only thing the player could do was shoot.
Yeah, you're forced. Yeah, it's interesting that that's the exact opposite scenario where you have to press the button, and in this case, we're pressing the button and nothing's happening. And Snake's like, no, I can't do it. No, stop.
Well, that was meant to. The MGS3 one was meant to be like an inversion of the MGS1 scene with shooting Gray Fox with the rocket. They flipped it for MGS. They flipped that situation for MGS3, where in MGS3 the only thing you can do is shoot.
Yeah.
By that time, I hated the boss so much for the calf shit that she put me through. That
she's a traitor.
I pressed the button in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, she's a traitor. She from a certain point of view, yeah, she had it coming anyway.
She chose her path, and then she's like, "Be a soldier, do your duty." It's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna shoot you now. Even though there's like a dozen ways to not kill her, if in reality, if you want to save her life, but the game was, and of course, it's all creative, it's all visual. When you kill her, all the flowers turn different colors, and all the wind blows, and it's so symbolic. Fantastic. Okay.
They all turn blood red.
Yes, rebirth and killing and life and nuclear fire and all kinds of other imagery you want to make up in your head. Anyway, Hideo Kojima loves that shit.
You also can't blame any game where you can play as Big Boss on nanomachines because they weren't created yet.
Oh, that's a good point. There were no nanomachines in MGS3.
At any game before Metal Gear 1, which is a handful.
Yeah. I mean, there still was tons of weird shit, though.
Oh, God. Then you get to Peace Walker. Oh, my God. It gets even weirder.
The Pain who could control bees.
Hornets, specifically. But yeah.
He turns them into Tommy guns. He turns them into grenades.
And grenades.
It doesn't make any damn sense.
And the end.
The
over
end.
A century old.
Oh, God, yeah.
Where you can kill him by waiting a week.
Yes.
Advancing the clock on this PlayStation, yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Yahtzee.
Spin-off question mark hanging over whether or not the protagonist was speaking. There's a moment in Half-Life Blue Shift where a character directly questions the protagonist, then pauses, then reacts like he got an answer. So maybe Gordon wasn't a literal in-universe mute and we just couldn't hear his voice for some stylistic reason or other. Besides, when every other person in the game is a generic scientist or guard and none of them have any...
Yeah, but that expansion was made by Gearbox, so it's like... Can we really expect like varying potential from them?
Yeah, do we even consider taking Blue Shift seriously? Like, does anyone actually remember?
Well, it's
canon.
It's like an hour-long game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it wasn't that big a deal.
It's canon though.
I don't care.
This is like getting.
It's not made by the pen of Gaben. So.
Yeah, this is like getting Enix to do like a sequel to like Chrono Trigger, and it's like half an hour long. Because
you know what, Enix making a sequel to Star Wars.
Isn't Gearbox canon different from the main canon?
No, there are some aspects like the Shepherd thing, like when you have to control the Marine. Like there are some conflicting details there. I just can't call them up right now.
Like, the problem is you don't hear the voice, or is it just like if you had like dialogue options? And the guy didn't talk, would he be fun?
Yeah.
Right. Any individuality. emphasis on characterization that makes Gordon's absent personality stick out less, all of which went out the window when Half-Life 2 came along. Suddenly, the generic copy-pasted scientists were replaced by specific characters with distinct personalities who were constantly jawing it up with each other and gushing at how impressed they are by Gordon and his wordless nobility. And now we knew Gordon literally wasn't talking because Alex Vance lampshades it. Man of few words, aren't you? So what purpose did it serve for Gordon to maintain stubborn silence at this point? Well, I'm reminded of the classic quip, better to stay quiet and be thought an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. While you can't fully project yourself into Gordon, you can project your own idea of what his personality is like. If he said anything, that might shatter our illusion.
What if Gordon Freeman is a mute? Like, he just can't talk.
Maybe he's just shot.
What if everyone admires him because of what he can do, so they want to get out of his way, and they just constantly help you out?
Yeah, he's literally
I was just going to bring that up. They admire him because he survived fucking Zen.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like that complaint that a lot of people have had with Half-Life 2 is ultimately irrelevant because no matter how you play Half-Life 1, you still save the world.
Yeah, if
you still survive Zen, whereas over the corpses of millions of scientists that you see all over the place.
Yeah, even the G-Man, I think he's pretty impressed with Gordon, in some capacity. So
that's the whole point of why. That's the whole reason for why G-Man hires him in the first place.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, this is the man who makes things happen. We're gonna help him. It doesn't matter if he's your villain or your friend. He's gonna want to help you, and that's fine. That's totally cool. I see nothing wrong with that. It doesn't. We don't need this weird personality characterization specifically from the protagonist for the sake of it. It's not. If it's not necessary, don't waste my time. Don't.
Like, if anything, the complaint is, why is Gordon so capable in Half-Life 1?
Right.
That's the real question. Yes.
Yeah. And we understand that through it's the first game. We didn't focus on dialogue. We didn't have to focus on dialogue. We focused on storytelling and level design and having a fun puzzle experience at times. So,
although there is at least somewhat of an explanation in terms of his athleticism when he's in the HEV suit, which is the HEV test training track. So there's some.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think in terms of like the John Wick films, like with the first two at least. How he's, oh my God, it's John Wick, and he just goes in and says a few lines. I need a new suit. I need some guns, whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. And they do all the talking. He's like, yes, no, yes. So that's how I see it. Like he doesn't have time to be sociable or friendly. He'll do the basic manners, but that's it. Like he's not there to be your friend. So I see nothing wrong with that. Does it make for a good story in terms of a literary experience? No, of course not. You want your protagonist to express themselves and say what they think and feel and what they're scared of and all that jazz. But that's not what these games are. And
get through John Wick's character through like exposition that other characters make, like the legend himself with the pencil.
Yeah, I remember the scene where this is where he talks to, was it Vito or the guy who's telling John, we just killed your dog, get over it, you weirdo. And he's like, that was the thing that my wife gave me that made me feel better, and your son took it away from me. And then he says, people have been asking me if I'm back or not. Well, let me guess. I think I am. Like it was like, oh, okay. Like that was more than enough of what we knew. Because he knew when we first met that guy that there's nothing he's going to say is going to stop John. Nothing he's going to say is going to save his son. And it's already done. The stories are like, we already know what's going to happen. So that scene with him talking to John is like, well, this is just a formality. And even John doesn't have to say anything. We know what he's going to do. So, but it was nice still to hear it, to make it clear to the audience that, this did actually mean a lot to John, even though we saw him brutally kill everyone who came after him anyway. So, anyway, we're not going to talk about Keanu's acting skills or
his acting,
lack thereof, or necessity of his. He's the perfect silent protagonist.
I think it fits the character.
Can
like monologues are better in that case. Sometimes they don't.
The role was made for him.
Honestly, the less he says, the better he is. Whenever he gets emotional, it doesn't work very well. But
the end of John Wick 3 was great when he just said, "Yeah."
Oh God, I'm glad he did.
I like that.
That's how the fourth movie begins as well. Like he just says, "Yeah."
I'm glad he went through the 5-6 months of training. Like that was awesome, and that's all I wanted out of him. I didn't want anything else. So anyway.
Did he bring up like Elder Scrolls games about silent
Nope.
attack?
Oh, that's a good point.
Or not yet, at least maybe.
Fallout.
Wasn't part of the reason people criticized Fallout 4 was because the person talked?
Yeah,
they heard the voice.
They said it was like Mass Effect, and it was like, oh shit, that's not a good thing. So,
well, wait, are we counting those protagonists who don't actually have any voice lines, but they have dialogue that you choose in the silent protagonists?
Well, that's the problem with a lot of the dialogue options with the skill-based trees. They're based off those, either the special stats or the skill stats, and some of them are not just, well, I have this skill, therefore I can do it. It's, oh, I'm going to put a grenade in your pants because I'm a son of a bitch. It's like, holy shit. You just happen to have the skill for it as well. So that is...
When you have written out lines, then it's not silent.
It's something else. They're trying to characterize the dialogue based off RPG mechanics or numbers, at least.
It's not about whether there is a voice actor or not. That's not the issue.
Yeah, this is where Fallout sort of breaks down for me, because Fallout is supposed to be an open world, for example. Well, there's other, obviously, Skyrim, what have you. But you're free to do what you want in a certain capacity, not in any capacity. And you need that limiting of freedom to make it more believable, to make it even doable. You can't just have an open world that's purely open. You'd have a literal sandbox, which is not a story-driven game. And then you wouldn't have any factions. Everyone would just be their own thing. So, or making their own up. I guess you want to be that dynamic. So you have to characterize something, and that should be the actual characters in the story and the choices you make. And that's where I sort of gets lost with the stats and the numbers, because there's no real. It's just I'm a dude that's stronger than you, so I'm gonna have 100% skill in like plasma, so I can melt your face. It's like, oh, is that good? Is that bad? Is it an evil person? Is it a good person? Are you just a crazy evil dude who kills anyone with a plasma rifle? I don't know. So they never really, they can't really do that with Fallout because it's too open-ended. Whereas they could do it in a game like Alpha Protocol, where you only have the 4 options. So, or the 3 options rather. The fourth one is always the dossier example, if you choose to get that data. So, but you're always playing as a spy. Those 3 flavors of spy, which I thought worked very well, as opposed to Shepard, which is the 2 flavors of, was it Jean-Luc Picard and Psycho Space Marine guy. That's about it. Anyway.
Illusions. Like when JC Denton goes, that is complete bollocks. That's just an excuse for lazy writing. It's like saying Jason Voorhees wears a mask the whole time in case
that was the best
he looks
scene
like
in
Ryan
the game.
Reynolds.
Like, that was the most beautiful scene in Day 6.
When he says bollocks?
No. Like the Illuminati plants a bomb on the helicopter, and JC has the option that like he can find the saboteur and kill it, and then tell Jog the pilot that like you should check your systems because there might be a bomb there. And then like the pilot says, "Oh my God, JC, a bomb!" And then JC replies, "Bomb." That's the scene.
Oh boy!
Someone link it in the chat. It's so good. Like,
yeah,
it's like they knew like what they were doing. Like it is made for a comedic purpose, but like after you're done with that, like the pilot tells you like, You make a great detective, JC. I don't even know. Like, is JC Denton a detective at UNATCO? Or
No.
he's just an agent, like investigator?
Yeah, he's just an agent. I think that, but that, as I said before, that was the style of the setting to be this B movie 80s 70s sci-fi flick. So,
like, I think like just before that, you can talk with the AI creation that Everett was making. That is just like kind of connecting like with the whole other like Deus Ex games. That like they just want to like have like a really smart AI replacing the global net, and it's just gonna like surveillance humanity entirely, and like breaking up the 50 pages of book worth of dialogue with a comedic scene like this is just perfect to like continue the game with. I believe, at least.
all right, let's keep on going.
It's like Ryan Reynolds. Gordon does have a personality. It's a personality by omission that you pick up from the reactions of people around him. And that personality is a stubborn, antisocial dickweed who can't even do the common courtesy of responding to people who are talking to him. And this distracts from the story.
Or maybe he just has nothing to say.
I don't see how it distracts, though. Like, this is like, you expect a human being to have a social response. It's like, well, no, not in this game. The same way you play Portal 2. I don't think you get any... Does Chell say anything?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Completely
Well, it's
silent.
never even applied.
Chell refuses
they
to
comment
speak.
that she's a mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not important to the narrative. It's not relevant.
I mean, we already have the context that Gordon is a scientist. Most scientists tend to be pretty antisocial, so...
I mean, he worked at Innsbruck before getting the job at Black Mesa.
Well, this is the second game in this regard, and we know how they tell stories. So if we're used to it, we're not suddenly, why isn't Gordon talking here? It's like, he's not going to. We're not expecting him to. So there's no expectations on what's supposed to happen. So that's a weird take. If you're talking about the first game, the first 10 minutes, you're like, this is kind of strange. Why isn't the character talking? There's voice, but he's not voiced. Then you realize, oh, I get it. It's a technique for story. Like, this is no different than having a ballet, like a ballet of a Shakespearean play, which sounds weird, but they do exist because Shakespeare is all kinds of poetry and words and crazy jokes and comedy, but it does work. And once you wrap that around your brain, you're like, how did they do this scene with Petruchio and Caterina in a ballet? Ah, that's how they do it. So if you know this, the written word, and you see it non-verbal or non-dialogue, you can then fill in the blanks. If you don't know it, you can still appreciate it as whatever medium it is. And in this case, we don't need to know exactly what's going on in his head. We don't know what his response would be. And even if you were to give him that character, yeah, it would sound more believable or more, I guess, natural, but it would no longer be Half-Life. It would no longer be Gordon. It would be that flavor of a character that you would attribute to Gordon then, as opposed to you being Gordon. And I always like the joke with Gordon that he's like that antisocial, semi-psychopathic scientist who just knows what to do at every point in time, which usually involves violence because they're being invaded by demons or whatever the hell the scenario.
Yeah, aliens.
Aliens, yeah. So,
I mean, like, I like the Freeman's Mind interpretation personally. But
yes, that's the best.
The what? Hold on.
The
Freeman's
YouTube
Mind
series called The Freeman's Mind.
It's great.
It's basically like a guy narrating over like every single thing that Gordon is doing in the game.
It's pretty funny, yeah. It's pretty much what's the Dragon Ball equivalent? Abridged?
Dragon Ball Abridged. Yeah.
What?
It's kind of like that. Anyway.
And the guy has been doing that since 2007, I believe.
It's still going on, yeah.
Yeah, it's still going on. I think he's in the middle of Half-Life 2.
There's what is the channel Accursed Farms?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Channel
There's
now.
92
it used to run on Machinima. If anyone remembers that channel.
Yeah. Machinima.
You mean website?
Well, Machinima was kind of cool. Anyone could submit anything, and it was, hit and miss a lot of the time, but, You got some good ones sometimes.
They used to sponsor Dark Side Film.
Yeah.
Many other celebrities.
Why would anyone do that?
Well, he used to be different back then.
That used to be pretty much the only way to guarantee you'd get money on your stuff.
As a reminder, Freeman's Mind for Half-Life 1 it has 68 episodes, and the most recent one for Half-Life 2 is number 17.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
God.
Well, he's doing a review series now and stuff where he talks about older games.
Yeah. Like I think like maybe there's like a episode for Half-Life 2 once or twice a year. That's how he rolls.
That's
but
pretty slow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get going.
Story. Dissonance between the way other characters seem to perceive Freeman and the way he acts like a sullen teenager at a wedding. You wonder how Dr. Kleiner can keep talking at him with such enthusiasm in the face of absolutely zero feedback or acknowledgement. You wonder what Alex Vance and the rest of the human resistance are seeing when they hold him up as a messianic figure of devotion. If anything, it feels...
Well, they hold him up as a messianic figure of devotion because his acts speak to that.
The same thing as Samus Aran.
It's the same thing as Doom Guy in the newer Doom games. Everyone like walks around him and it's like, oh, and like worship. Some people even like worship him in the new game, and he's just like, it's because they see all the stuff he does. He doesn't need to...
it's the guy who saved the world. I think I want to help him.
Yeah, look at
And not to mention, we don't know what feedback Gordon is giving. Technically,
If any.
he could have all sorts of facial expressions that say what he's thinking.
Well,
that we don't see.
I would look at. I think it works well with like Master Chief because you don't need Master Chief to say much. He's just a really good soldier, and he's saying, "I'm going to do this. This is what's going to happen. Do this when I'm ready." Like it's all straightforward action. I'm going to go here and do that. It's not like I'm going to give giant exposition dumps of what's happening because you don't need that. The story is already fine.
He had his lines too, where he goofed around a bit. He had a very dry sense of humor.
Yeah, that's fair. But it's pretty much I'm a grunt who's really good at his job, and I'm telling you what's happening, regardless.
But the thing is, at least with Bungie Halo, Master Chief didn't talk during gameplay.
Right. It was all the cutscenes that we saw, but even then it was minor.
It was done. Yeah, it was done sparingly.
Yeah. So even if he said,
and he's also another character where even though he doesn't talk much, his actions speak a lot about who he is.
Yeah, that's what works about a lot of these main protagonists.
Yeah,
the actions are their. You could say the actions that they do in gameplay are their dialogue.
Even if you look at Metal Gear, where there's so much dialogue in the codex, Snake is pretty much just asking questions. Like his whole entire conversations with everyone always have like majority of questions. He's always like, "Did you just say Metal Gear?" Like he's always asking whatever the person just said so they could add more detail. And
well, there's a conspiracy going on behind his back, Smud.
Oh, that's fine, but even the conversations are pretty much one-sided anyway, and it's the lines of dialogue from Hader are pretty much just to get the characters to come out and tell you things about whatever that, like the Natasha character is completely worthless in the story in terms of plot, but she's just talking about weapons and cigarettes and whatever the hell else. Like, all right, cool. Like you don't even need to talk to her. So there's lots of...
I'd almost argue there's more characterization in all the codec calls for Naked Snake over Solid in MGS3.
He's
not just asking questions. He usually says like weird stuff.
Yeah, there's the weird conversations with Paramedic, and all Snake cares about, how does it taste? And Paramedic is like, well, I watched this movie last week, and you're like, oh, here we go. So it's funny, but it's completely unnecessary to the story. It just adds that extra layer of detail in the world if you want that for your story, I guess.
His conversations with Sigan are hilarious too.
Oh yeah, who would put legs on a tank? That's stupid.
Is there a way to take my pants off?
As a friendly reminder, Paramedic is the one that turns Gray Fox into a cyborg.
Otacon, how do I turn off this weep shit?
Oh boy.
That's easy. Just kill Otacon.
Is his problem that he just wants to hear a VA, or does he want like clear indication that the character can communicate with, like, whether that be like?
Well, that's the big question. Like, we're still trying to find it out.
I think the problem is he's just interpreting a bunch of weird shit from the character not saying anything. Like,
oh yeah, that's a great point. Unless the character explicitly says like what they mean and what they are meant to do, like he can interpret it as many shit as possible. Oh my god!
I know Yahtzee in the past, like he's like been open. He doesn't care for platformers when he has to cover them on his show, and part of that is because he doesn't like that there's no like deep story, or like the characters there's no like story dynamics because the mascot doesn't do anything like talk and stuff.
All right.
Like he's just like, oh, this character doesn't talk. Oh, they're basically just a murder hobo then.
All right, we got 2 minutes left. I don't think he's going to go for the full 2. They usually have a little outro. But I think we're like, dude, these are not very good points outside of you feel a little uncomfortable with Gordon Freeman at certain
He's
times.
going to wrap this up to come to some point that in the future there are going to be less silent protagonists or not, because that's supposed to be the point of his video.
It really depends on where the market goes with indie games wanting to do that. If indie games do that,
don't have the budget.
Well, that's what I mean. If indie games can or want to do that, they'll focus on the narrative as opposed to, well, we're just going to do a slasher game or shooter game or whatever the case may be, and they don't need that. So it depends on the design of the game. And yeah, the AAAs are going to do fully voice acted characters.
And Nintendo will continue to stay silent because it's for kids, and kids need to project themselves into the world.
Yeah, I think they learned their lesson with Other M. So
good.
Well,
I mean, the only Nintendo-led franchise I can think of that doesn't have a silent protagonist is Star Fox.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the issues with Other M in terms of Samus talking and everything surrounding that, they become more apparent when you realize that the game before it, Prime 3, does something similar in terms of plot, but they still kept Samus silent, even though she is interacting with the other hunters in the Federation.
Yeah, the problem with Other M is not that she was voiced. It was that the story was so dumb that what she ended up saying was stupid. And how the story plays out, like, oh, we turned on was it Varia suit or whatever? It's like, what? No.
And having a PTSD attack, even though she's already like 7 times.
I mean, the voice acting was bad too.
Yeah, it felt like a res.
I think they wanted to not talk about
it. Go for stoic. I think they were trying to go for stoic voice. It just sounded like she was bored the whole time.
Yeah, great direction, Sakamoto. Thanks.
I thought we wanted to not talk about Other M.
Yeah, we're not going to. Anyway, let's go.
All right, let's continue the video, I guess.
Kyogo's Hideout in the channel, in the chat said, alternate title for this video, Extrovert complains about introvert characters. And Yahtzee is a fake gamer, which I'm starting to believe.
Onwards is used as a self-effacing nostalgic gag, poking fun at the way we used to do things. Same energy as the...
Oh, that's Jack.
No, it's just lampshading. That's it.
Back to Jack.
It's just lampshading.
Yes, it's a gag.
And as far as lampshading goes...
Not, look, our character didn't talk, so he doesn't talk now. No, it's just lampshading.
Yeah, this is
Dead Space 2 does the same thing.
Yeah, this is probably...
Except it's the other way around, where they point out that he's talking now.
Yeah, the use of lampshades in that regard is, I'd say, less bad than lampshades for actual bad story parts that we see in Mass Effect, which happens in 2 and 3, when they make jokes about Omnigel and thermal clips and all this other crap, because
Well, yeah, when you lampshade bad storytelling, it's still bad storytelling at the end of the day.
Yeah, and this isn't bad. This is just a technique for storytelling that the narrative works already. So, oh no, the actor is not voiced. So what? What's your problem? Do you understand what's going on?
Jack 2 has Daxter make jokes about that. They lampshade it.
Yeah. I was gonna say that with Dead Space 2, it's like they lampshade Isaac not talking in the first game, which is completely lost now thanks to the remake.
Did they lampshade it in 2?
They did. They made a pretty similar joke to what they did in Jack 2.
I really don't remember. It was just like jokes from Daxter and like they made him talk in Jack 2 because GTA and stuff was going on, and so they're like, oh, we're making it edgier. Let's have him curse sometimes.
All right. The bit in Jak and Daxter 2 when the previously mute protagonist suddenly reveals a voice, or the bit in Saints Row 2 when fun is poked at how the boss was silent in the previous game and now talks for no established reason, or the bit in GTA San Andreas when the silent...
Well, no, he has an established reason. It's because he's done shutting up and taking orders. He literally says that, exactly.
GTA 3 is another issue, but that's... this is right before Vice City, where the character was voiced, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. I think in GTA 2, like, he had lines, like not written lines.
Yeah.
Wasn't GTA 2 a top-down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was still top-down.
GTA 2 was a top-down game in, like, the future, wasn't it?
It was still, like, in a city, like, in, like, 2000 city setting, so.
But even then,
it was beautiful.
It's fine because this is the direction the team went. It doesn't matter. GTA series is gigantic. If they want to add voice acting to the main character is different every game. It's fine. Doesn't change the nature of the game. Doesn't change the narrative very much. It's fine. I don't see the problem.
Also in 3D, it's just Claude. Everyone else after Claude talks. So.
Okay.
Protagonist 3 is brought out for everyone to mock. Games turning on silent protagonism as it became more of a distraction than something plot justifiable, and enough time has passed now that even as a gag it no longer lands. So can it still...
That was just self-awareness.
I wouldn't call it turning on it.
That was just with Claude Speed, that was just self-awareness because San Andreas takes place 9 years before GTA 3?
Yeah, this is
something like that.
They're of course gonna.
And again, there's still tons of games with silent protagonists coming out.
Yeah.
It's not like it stopped happening.
I remember.
Especially Doom.
I remember even up to Super Nintendo with Chrono Trigger, but before that there was the first Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest, and the first Final Fantasy. You press the A button to talk to someone. You just get one dialogue box of that character talking to you with whatever paragraph or sentence. Same with Dragon Quest. They're talking to you. And that's fine. That's the format. That's how games worked. And as we all know, Chrono Trigger, silent protagonist. We know Chrono does talk, just we don't see it. We never actually see any dialogue. But he has his facial expressions, he has his body expressions when he's scared or what have you. And that's fine. The story comes across. He is a man of action, as all protagonists are, and it fits. We do not need that extra characterization or sound. It's non-essential. So
I mean, there was a GBA RPG, Golden Sun, which you had the first game and the second game. The first game you played as one protagonist, and there was a character named Felix in that game, and you played as Felix in the second game. Felix talks in the first game. He's silent in the second game because you're playing as him. And the character you play as in the first game shows up in the second game, and he talks there, but he's silent in the first game because you were playing as him.
Yeah. It's a design choice by the creators of the game to make a game, to tell a story, to do whatever they need to do. And that's fine. I'm not seeing a huge issue with this, nor do I see it as a cultural shift or technological shift or anything of that nature. So I don't see the problem. And I really see voice acting as just that extra layer of cost that a studio would do. So if they...
It's an extra layer of cost. It's also a barrier between the player and the character in a way that the player doesn't get to choose to characterize themselves with their voice.
Yeah, like imagine there's a Kickstarter. This is the simplest way I could think of, is they have like a voice acting tier. Like they get to $500K. Now they could hire voice actors, and that would be like, oh, okay, that would be a whole extra 4 months of dev. So do people want that at a certain style of game? Sure. I think games like AAA studios make would have to have something like that if they're going to sell a $60, $70 price tag. But for an indie game from like a Kickstarter one where they try and reinvent Konami games or 16-bit games, it's like you don't really need it. It's not that important. It's nice, but it's not essential. All right. We're at 7 minutes. We're almost done. No, 6 minutes, sorry.
Can it still serve any purpose? Well, I can think of a couple of justifications for it in a modern context. In a first-person shooter with particularly hectic action and many jabbering NPCs, layering on another disembodied voice would probably only be more confusing. So it makes sense in something like Call of Duty 4 or High on Life. And also relating to High on Life, it makes sense in comedy games where the plot is focused on the NPCs and their dialogue, and the silent protagonist is playing the part of the straight man. So it still works in the Portal games. And possibly also the Ghostbusters game adaptation from 2009. I think the protagonist of that game was struck dumb with astonishment that they'd somehow gotten all 4 original actors to agree to be in it. So in summary, I guess I entirely support Dead Space's decision to let Isaac Clarke out of the personality closet, because there really was no justification for it in the first place. Certainly not in a...
No, there was. It was what they wanted to do.
Yeah, Glenn Schofield specifically wanted it.
As I said before, it makes sense to be silent when you're surrounded by zombies.
Yeah.
And not babble to yourself all the time or have the comms open all the time.
Yeah,
you want to keep that low as much as possible.
Yeah, he could have made the genre argument, the gameplay argument, the characterization argument, he said the cipher, that was fair. So we know why this thing exists. The player's not dumb. We know certain genres have certain styles of gameplay and modes of gameplay for the player. And in cases like Deus Ex, you have different styles of gameplay as well. And in Alpha Protocol, you have different methods of communication where you would want that dialogue options to have multiple pathing. And if you can afford it, voice acted. So I don't think you need the voice acting for Half-Life.
I will conclude that Yahtzee does not have a personality, therefore he cannot project himself onto a silent protagonist, and therefore wants the games to tell what the personality of the characters are.
Have you ever considered that he's just trying to make a video and he's doing his best to make a point he doesn't really agree with, and he's just doing his best to pump it out?
I don't think he's doing his best. I think he's just wanting to make a video.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that he's doing his best.
He has made in reviews, though. He doesn't like silent protagonists.
Yeah.
He just personally doesn't like them because they don't help the story. And I think he's just a very story-focused guy. He's made.
Yeah, that's his problem. If he thinks that doesn't help the story, then he's an idiot.
Same with the lack of love of JRPGs outside of, I think, like Persona 5 at least. So that could have to do with it. So he just doesn't like this style of gameplay, and that's where we got a lot of silent protagonists from Japan. So maybe
that's what I say is if he thinks that doesn't help the story, then he's an idiot, because the world and the story are still there. They still work, and the silent protagonist is there for you to feel more immersed in that world and not just look at it as if at a movie that's babbling at you. Then go watch a fucking movie, Yahtzee.
I suddenly realized
that's what all you people want to do anyway. You want to watch movies, like the people who never played the Mario game, then go to the cinema, watch the Mario movie, and before the movie starts, babble, "Oh yeah, I don't actually know much about Mario. Oh, that's this Ghost, right? That's Boo, right?"
I do recall.
I had that just now when I watched the movie.
I love that.
Hilarious.
I love that. That's literally what happened when the movie came out. It's amazing.
I just remembered the game Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The dialogue in that game is atrocious. It's silly. The voice acting, the actors are great. Their delivery is like one's in one room, one's in another studio, one's in another part of the world. Like they're not even talking to each other. It sounds hilarious. If you got rid of all that, I would have liked the game more.
But Smut, you just described the German dub of Mass Effect.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly like that. None of the emotions fit. It's great.
I
like the dialogue of Symphony of the Night. It's easy.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world.
I mean, people like the dialogue of RE1, and that was.
Oh my god!
Well, then again, Symphony of the Night did get a redub later on.
It did.
Yes,
for the PSP.
The PSP, and then the collection.
Really?
Generic American voice acting.
I really like the original Alucard for the PSX. I don't know about the remake. Jeez, I didn't know that.
They don't overact as much in there.
Yeah, and like Resident Evil, like when it was about like immersion with like a horror game and the purpose of the Silent Hill and Resident Evil, they did a mixed thing. Where they talk in the cutscenes, but when you're playing as them, they like are implied to talk with like text. But you don't hear it in game.
Interesting.
Did you bring up RE1?
Yeah. If they just made the storyline worthwhile, all you're gonna do with voice acting is it's kind of like another food analogy. It's kind of like having really good Parmigiano grated cheese on your pasta. If the pasta sucks, you'll make it taste better. But it's still going to be bad pasta. It's just more digestible. So, I don't know. I would get rid of that crap. Give me a good quality product, or just get rid of the pasta entirely and give me the sauce. I'll just drink the sauce.
The fuck?
That's a good.
Honestly,
you sure you don't have that backwards?
Yahtzee's biggest problem is he sees a silent protagonist and he can't help but think of them just going through the entirety of the game with just a neutral expression the entire time. That's it.
And
he can't interpret anything else.
Yeah.
He sees the silent protagonist in his mind. He's like, man, this would be better if he went into like a Shakespearean monologue to help the story.
Yeah, it's kind of like
they might as well be floating through T-posing to him.
Yeah,
that's
it's kind of like, to me, it's like going through a dream in certain of these games, because you're in a dream. You don't really talk. You just sort of go through the motions of whatever you're doing. And maybe in your dreams you talk to people, but for me it's always just cool thing, action, everything's happening. So to me, playing a game with a silent protagonist is like a dream world for me. I don't need the dialogue. Sometimes I don't even want the dialogue. So whenever you come across a character, let's say in Fallout, sometimes it goes zoop, and it goes, voice acting, here we go, or sometimes just an NPC with no voice acting. It's just dialogue choices, and it's part of a mod that they didn't do any voice acting for, which is totally fine. Anyway. 40 seconds left. Here we go.
Narrative third-person game with a completely non-comedic tone where NPCs were frequently talking at him and he could have been saying important things in reply, like, why do I always have to be the one going into monster-haunted territory by myself while you all hoard the snacks in the monitoring room? And do you have any Febreze? I've tanked 37 jump scares this morning and my spacesuit trousers are starting to...
Why?
Well, that's because he's not thinking that. One, he knows the other people that are with him are in danger. Two, he's not the only one in danger.
Why... Yahtzee, why do you sound like a petty narcissist?
Why isn't my comedy in this game? Why isn't my sensibilities in this game? It's like, you're not the writer.
Look, the whole thing about the silent protagonist is that you can imagine him saying that.
I can't even think about anything that happens to Isaac in the game that, if he were to point out, would drastically change the story.
And he pretty much has bigger problems than that right now.
Besides maybe pointing out that he keeps seeing Nicole, but that never happens in a point where people could point out, hey, I was there too. Nicole wasn't there, dude. So there's no point where he could at least point something out and actually drastically changed the story in this kind of way.
Yeah, in the remake, he just kind of, like, when he sees Nicole, or thinks he does, it's just like he ends up telling them on the comm, but he's never in the same room as the other people.
All right. Well, I think we're done here. Let me just keep going. Yeah, it's done. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
God tier.
Yay, we're done.
Memes.
What a waste of support.
Well,
how much do you have to pay to be God tier?
His arguments weren't that
I'm
great.
still wondering, like, what did I ever see in Yahtzee as a creator? Because I used to like his stuff.
It was funny in the beginning when we were younger, and I saw
I've
some
gone back
flaws
and
with
watched
the
some of
games
his old
that he
stuff,
was
and he's made a
pointing
lot
at.
of the same stuff, a lot of the same criticisms that he makes now that are just as bad.
Well, this is a great meme. It showcases the quality of characters by virtue of them keeping their mouths shut. So, yeah, those three. I'm not too sure about the one on top. I haven't played it, so I don't know. But the ones I've seen.
Which one?
Horizon Zero Dawn, the sequel, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I don't know if she. I know she talks. I don't know
The
if she
West.
actually made quips.
Yeah. But
she's constantly explaining the puzzle.
well, Samus, Morgan, and I think that's Doom Guy. Yeah, they're fine.
The Chads of gaming.
I won.
In case of Shell is literally a mute.
I won.
Bowser's sourpuss bread.
You know what they say? All toasters, toast, toast.
Oh boy, I can't wait to bomb some Dodongos.
That's real dialogue from the game.
Oh boy, is this?
John Half-Life.
Thank you, being Gordon Half-Life.
2017. What's that? We're from the future. Whoa, no way! This is so cool. Huh? Oh dear. Legacy. What do you got for me?
Fuck you.
Is this the Gary's mod? I can't remember.
It is Gary's mod.
It's an SFM source code maker.
No. This is Gary's mod.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Looks like it. Anyway, unfunny quippy dialogue pilled. Oh boy, that's a lot. Yeah. Fallout 4, GTA 5. And then we have even more chads. Okay, great. Cool. And I'm not going to play that, whatever that is. Oh, it's the bomb. I'll play it later.
It is the bomb.
It is the bomb.
The other deadpan comedy moment. He was a great man. What a way to die.
Well, rather way to die.
You missed the lip smacks.
Maybe you should try getting a job.
Silent protagonists are distraction. I missed the part where that's my problem. Ooh.
How is a silent protagonist distracting?
Where deep story? Yeah, if the story is a puddle, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
I can imagine Yahtzee sitting in the room with a bunch of monkeys. Asking where deep story.
I mean,
So
that's
much
pretty
in
much
his character.
I mean, that's pretty much just what the escapist is.
Yeah, you would,
Yahtzee and a bunch of monkeys.
you could argue that talking protags are a distraction when you don't need dialogue. And there's so many stories. This is a problem with writers, not in general, but certain writers. They don't shut up, or they either brainstorm or do outlines of chapters with dialogue. It's the strangest thing. I've never done that, but maybe their brain works differently, and they could explain it to me. And they want, we have to have this dialogue. It's like, dude, this is like 5 pages of people talking to each other. We don't need this.
There's like the very few games I can think of where the protagonist not shutting up is a massive plus for me.
What the heck is the face app? You're combining Joe Biden, I think, with Yahtzee?
Joe Biden and Yahtzee.
Is that what it's going to look like in 10 years?
Oh my god.
Probably.
All right. Me when Wisp roasted Yahtzee. Okay.
Did I?
Well, you didn't say very nice things, so yeah. What is a
I was just being autistic.
All right, so when Dracula says anything, it's great because he's in his own world anyway, and he's crazy, and he's melodramatic. That's totally cool. It's when everyone else says anything, it's just so disconnected and hilarious.
I mean, I think Dracula and Alucard definitely have like actually fitting voices.
Yes.
It's Richter's voice that is like a huge problem.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world.
I loved it along with Dracula. Like it's so
He sounds
it's so cheesy.
He sounds weirdly old, is what I would say. Like he's supposed to be like 20 or something, and he sounds like an old man.
You steal men's souls and make them your slaves. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty silly. Oh, but what a game! If they just took out the dialogue and changed the story a bit, that'd be good.
You like it, but you want to take it out? What?
Yeah, no, it's so corny.
Oh?
If I get rid of blemishes, I would.
I think it's
No, it's so bad. It's good. That's why it's funny. But yeah. Anyway, I didn't know they remade the voices for the PSP. I'm gonna check it out. So
yeah, they rewrote the dialogue too. So
is Maria still weird?
I don't think the "What is a man" speech in the PSP one is as good. I think it's actually kind of
why would you change that? Absolute gold.
Oh.
It's the same. No, it's the same line. The delivery is just different.
Oh, really?
Much.
No. I'm pretty sure I remember them changing the line. Like they changed the wording.
I will check that right now.
I will check it out too. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. That was only an hour and a half of us watching Yahtzee for a 7.5 minute video. What a bad take. I mean, there's so much nuance to this. And we know this because we played games for decades, and we know the difference between why you would use a character with voice-acted lines and when it doesn't work and when it does. And he could have talked about badly voiced lines, very well voiced lines, great games without talking protagonists. So I want him to get into the details of voice acting. He didn't do that. When dialogue works, when it doesn't. But no, he just prefers it.
Yep, it's different lines.
Awesome.
Oh.
Fuck.
I'm going to check it out.
I said read some super chats.
Oh, cool. The Copperell, I missed you, sir. You guys should play Gmod. I want to see the chaos. Oh.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Well, maybe we'll get it on stream one day for Smud Talk. Who knows? Anyway.
Those days are long over.
We'll get Gmod. We'll get some Mass Effect maps. It'll be fun.
Oh, my God, no.
Have fun, G-Man. I'm out.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have yourself a great evening. Happy long Easter recovery period. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.